Howdy, all. I really hate these boring days when we have no news to talk about. We got to talk about just so nondescript and so boring. Hey, Russ.
Hey, how are you?
Now, we've got plenty of news, and we're going to get to it. We'll have Ty Anderson and probably Eck. He's trying to get to the show here and talk about a lot of the stuff that happened yesterday. But we have to talk about this because every show I've listened to, sports or non-sports, has talked about this. And I actually think it was pretty cool. I want to get your opinion on this, Russ, because you know what we're talking about. Kate Upton, who is the supermodel, part-time actress, generally acknowledged as one of the most beautiful women in the world. She is the fiance of Detroit Tigers starting pitcher Justin Verlander, and Verlander was a finalist for the Cy Young. And Verlander lost in a very close race to former teammate Rich Porcello, who's now with the Boston Red Sox. Well, Kate Upton, I think she was channeling her inner Gisele Bundchen because she went to Twitter and excoriated the apparently there were two writers who did not even put Verlander in the top 5. And I don't know how many votes it was between first and second that Porcello won by, but if these voters would have put him in the top 2 or 3, he probably would have won. And she, in no uncertain terms, basically the line was, I'm supposed to, Justin Verlander. I don't know why two writers did it.
Yeah.
What'd you think of that, Ross?
Yeah, I can't get the exact numbers right now. Even Baseball Reference doesn't have them. But what I would say is, I don't think either one of them should have won the Cy Young. I think it should have been Zach Britton, the great reliever for the Baltimore Orioles. Here's the year he had.
Yeah.
He had a .54 ERA, 63 games finished, 47 saves. He had a .83 whip. He was unhittable. He had 74 strikeouts in 67 innings. The Orioles don't make it anywhere without Zach Britton. And here's the thing. He's not the sexy name. There's definitely something about relievers and winning that award, but Eckersley won it. Mike Marshall won it. It happens. This is one of those dominant years where it should have happened. Verlander had a terrific year, but you know what? I wouldn't have made him the Cy Young. I don't mind that Kate Upton did what she did, but I don't mind that she excoriated a couple of writers for leaving the ballot blank because you said it was blank, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's, to me, again, then don't vote. Give up your vote. Tell MLB, basically tell the Writers Association you no longer want to vote, because to me that's just something that they do out of spite and not because they want to vote. And so that's my biggest problem is that. But again, I would have made Zach Britton be.
I saw the votes, and I know that Verlander had 18. I think it was 18 first place votes and 2 second place votes. Porcello had 8 first place votes and 18 second place votes.
Okay, so it mattered.
It mattered, and yeah. So it was. I mean, and in the National League, Kyle Hendricks, who was the key pitcher for the Chicago Cubs, he loses to Max Scherzer. And I looked at until the last game of the regular season, Kyle Hendricks had an ERA under 2.
Yeah.
Scherzer had a very good year, but this is the problem I have with these votes. I remember back in the day, I can't remember what player it was, but there was a player who was going for the Hall of Fame, and I think it was Bill Conlon, the old writer from.
I met him. Yeah.
Yeah, he apparently left his Hall of Fame ballot blank because he believed no player deserved to be 100%, unanimous choice for the Hall of Fame. That's the kind of guy you get out of voting.
Yeah,
that's asinine.
Yep.
If you give somebody a right to vote, if I get a right to vote, I'm going to vote. I mean,
Yeah, perfect example. Perfect example was Seaver. Today's Tom Seaver's birthday. I'm going to work that in. He's 72. He used to have the record for voting for the Hall of Fame. It was like 98 point whatever. And it was hard for me to believe that anybody could leave him off, but they do because, probably he annoyed a writer or two and that's it. So, and then Griffey broke Seaver's record this past year with like a 99 point whatever. And I'm thinking, who could leave Ken Griffey Jr. off a ballot? Like, but somebody does. And so this is the craziness.
Well, not to be Yankee centric, but I would like to see the idiot that votes against Derek Jeter. Because even in the places where the Yankees are hated, Derek Jeter is respected. So I would be shocked if any of the Boston writers didn't vote thumbs up for Derek Jeter for the Hall of Fame. So if Derek Jeter doesn't get 100%, then nobody will. Not to say he's the best player of all time because he's not. But if he doesn't get 100%,
no, but you know what? I will say this: he's one of the best players of his generation. Not everybody has to be a home run hitter. And he's one of the best shortstops I've ever seen play the position. Have there been better guys at short? Like Ordonez had a better glove.
Yeah.
Vizquel had, better finesse.
But more power.
But no, I mean in the field. In the field.
Yeah.
But Jeter made every play he needed to, and he had that jump throw, and he was the first guy ever to do that jump throw in the hole,
right?
And reach on a fly. See, Ozzie used to bounce it on the turf, and so to me, that's enough right there where you realize this guy's smart enough to realize, hey, if I do that jump throw, I could get my arm in the right position and get a better throw. So that's a big deal besides the everything else he's done, which is too much to mention and might get me nauseous.
And yeah, well, he should be the Hall of Fame for one reason. But no, I mean,
for killing the Mets, huh?
Well, that too. No, but and the funny thing is, you look at all the shortstops now, every one of them, all the good ones do the jump throw.
Yes.
So the influence that he had. Anyway,
tremendous influence. You can't even deny it. But again, for this one, I wish the writers would think outside of the box, and a guy like Zach Britton, who is not the sexy name, deserved it. And I'll tell you why Scherzer got the Cy Young, because he won 20 games. That's the reason. They didn't care. Kendricks was 16-8. Everything else was completely dominant, but he didn't have 20 wins. If you win 20 games, you will win the Cy Young if nobody else wins 20 games. I go back to
Lamar Hoyt.
Lamar Hoyt's one of them. I forget his first name, but Bryant, who pitched for the Giants, had 24 wins one year. Okay. And he, again, was not a spectacular pitcher, but he had 24 wins. He had the most wins. So, I mean, I wish they would get all, because it is a team stat in a way. It's not always the, pitcher's ability to get a win. Sometimes he comes out of the game and they lose the game, and that's the big deal. It's like, a lot of times there'll be close games, and I can't even imagine. Seaver won 311 games, right? I can't even imagine how many he didn't win, no decisions, because I never see the number for no decisions. He and Steve Carlton probably have a billion no decision. That's a new number, by the way. Because basically their teams used to stink for a lot of years.
No, please. I mean, Carlton started with the Cardinals, and this was the Cardinals after they won the World Series in the late 60s. So the early 70s Cardinals that didn't have a lot of offense. Then he went to the Phillies, and the Phillies stunk.
Yeah, so here's Ron Bryant. If you're watching, no offense, you had a great year. But Ron Bryant won 57 games in his career. Think about that for a minute. So in 1973, he was 24-12. He pitched 270 innings. He had a 3.53 ERA. Oh, no, he came in third in the Cy Young. I take it back. I thought he won that year. He came in third. Never mind.
Okay.
My bad.
All right, let's start the show. I'm doing my homage to Ack here. Here we go. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, November 17th, 2016.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology. That's it, right?
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzCast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Ackland and Ty Anderson will be here shortly, and we will discuss all the news in the hockey world. We'll get started with this, Russ, because it broke just a couple hours before the webcast, and not good news for the Tampa Bay Lightning, but they should be growing used to this because, once again, Steven Stamkos, who, is, to me, one of the best players in the league, and I was all in favor of the Maple Leafs going after Stamkos in free agency last year. But one of the concerns that I think anybody had looking at his career is, he's had a couple serious injuries, and now he has suffered a lateral torn meniscus. It was diagnosed after he was sent back to Tampa yesterday. He had an MRI, and now he's being sent to a specialist. According to TSN's Bob McKenzie, he's being sent to a specialist in Vail, Colorado, and the prognosis for his return after surgery is anywhere from 4 to 6 months. So now 4 months puts him at mid to late March, which is right before the playoffs.
Yeah.
6 months puts him in the conference final, which is when he came back this year. I mean, okay, first, I think if there's one team that can survive the loss of a Stamkos, it's Tampa Bay, because they've had experience losing Stamkos.
This is a tough one, man. But here's the thing. When you go in for knee surgery, they MRI you ahead of time, they look at it. They basically, it's the same thing as going to your Meineke dealer or any other car garage, and they get you to sign that estimate. So here's the estimate. It's 4 months. This is so you know, it's 4 months. You sign the estimate at Meineke, it's going to cost you $200, right? Then you get the call later, and the call later says, when we had your car up on the lift, we saw these other things. And it happens when you're under the knife. They look at your knee, and sometimes they find under things. That's what happened to mine. I got, I probably said it before, but I'll just say it one more time. I got an estimate of 4 to 6 weeks of rehab. I woke up, it was 4 to 6 months. And so, because they found other stuff that they didn't see. And
Right.
And so the doctors will just inevitably fix it while you're under, because they're like, hey, we can fix it. Why go through another operation? And so that's why this is the best estimate for Stamkos, the best. Everything's perfect. His rehab goes perfect. There's no setback. He's in, he buys a hyperbaric chamber if he doesn't already own one, which he probably does. And this is their best case scenario. Until after the operation, that's when you get the first best estimate to me. The ones beforehand, I throw out. Those are the ones where we sort of guesstimate, and even a doctor is guesstimating. But it's the one right after the surgery. If they tell you, then that's the one you can count on. But then you have to track the progress, because sometimes guys will have setbacks.
Yeah, and they made it clear that, I don't know whether the surgery is going to take place like tomorrow. Sometimes with certain injuries, they have to wait for swelling to go down, to get I guess it's going to be arthroscopic surgery, so it's not an open procedure, and there very rarely are open procedures on knees any longer. But they seem, the reports from Bob McKenzie seem to be pretty basic in terms of it's 4 to 6 months. That's the general range. There's always the possibility of complications, but put the injury to the side right here. Again, Tampa, I think, is the team that can survive this injury because they survived it last year. There's enough depth there. They have, the good goaltending. Their defense is playing pretty well this year. Drouin is back now. He was injured for a little bit, but he's back. They really haven't. They got Ryan Callahan back from his injury from the offseason. So there's enough there for them to be able to make the top 3 in the Atlantic Division and have some success in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think they could hold off the fort. I don't think that's a problem. Will this get maybe someone like Adam Earn a promotion? Maybe. I saw the other day he had 6 points in 12 games. He's scoring some goals. He's a big body. He skates pretty well now. I think his skating has gotten better, but he could add a different dynamic. Even if you're just throwing him onto a bottom line, this is a big, strong kid with a great shot. Maybe you do throw him in there, and if you see that your offense, is curtailing a little bit, this will give your guy Kucherov a real chance to sort of see if he could be the leader of this team offensively, because it is easy to sort of say, hey, look at him. He could be the best player on the team, when a guy like Stamkos literally takes all the pressure on him and it's all on his shoulders, right? Kucherov, we never talk about it and say, it's up to him. He's got to score this game. He's got to win the Stanley Cup, right? He never has that pressure. Now he does.
Well, yeah, but he he has the experience of actually being the guy last year when Stamkos went down. I mean, he was the go-to guy when he got hurt last year throughout the playoffs at the toughest point of the year. I mean, he had some help. Drouin played really well in the playoffs, and that was sort of unexpected. But Kucherov was the guy.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing I can look at from the Tampa Bay point of view, from Yzerman's point of view here is, they're going to obviously be getting progress notifications about Stamkos. They'll be tracking what's going on with his recovery. He's an $8.5 million salary. That's a salary that you can put on long-term injury. They're going to probably put him on long-term injury because they're close to the cap. That gives them flexibility. They can go out and get themselves somebody at the deadline. And if, say, for example, Stamkos is on target, on schedule, and he's ready to come back in the middle of March or maybe mid to late March, then you can just wait a couple more weeks, be careful with them, and the salary cap has no ramifications in the playoffs. You could go out and get yourself a pending UFA in a trade that can help you win and not have any kind of salary cap ramifications because Stamkos would come back during the playoffs. I think obviously they're going to want Stamkos back as soon as possible, and if he's available March 1, he's coming back. But if March 1 is the deadline, and if he's 3-4 weeks away, then I think that there's an opportunity there for Tampa Bay to upgrade or improve and add some firepower.
Yeah, I think they could. I think they could upgrade. I think they might pick up somebody at that point, somebody who's just got a few months and a team doesn't want to pay him. We'll see what happens at that point, but they certainly have enough to stay in it. So I'm not worried about that for them.
I want to get your point of view on this because you've covered the Lightning.
I got a new haircut for us. It looks good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Couldn't do them off anymore.
You've covered Tampa Bay for Hockey Buzz and this injury to Stamkos, and it's obviously big news with them. I don't have any doubt that John Cooper and this club can survive without Stamkos for 4 months, but I was looking at it as soon as I heard the news from a Toronto point of view, of course, because I cover the Leafs. And if Stamkos had signed a free agent contract with the Leafs, how you look at, he's had the neck problem, he's had the broken leg, he's now had the knee problem. None of these are sort of the same problem, like a Bobby Orr thing where it's the knee all the time. It's different injuries all the time. He seems to be susceptible to these major injuries, and this is the third year he's going to miss significant time for the Lightning.
Yeah, you wonder what part of it is bad luck and what part of it is, injury prone, unfortunate, whatever you want to call it. This is a big loss, though. I think you look at how he's played this year. He's really sort of carried that team. Both he and Kucherov have been their 1-2 punch, and beyond that, it's sort of been hit and miss here and there from their players. Kucherov and Stamkos are one of 3 Lightning players right now, or 3 Lightning forwards, I should say, with at least 10 points. Filppula is the other one. So I mean, you're not getting contributions like you expect from the Johnson line, which has Killorn and Palat there. So a little bit of a mixed bag for the Lightning this year. Obviously, with Stamkos, I mean, this is a big loss. Like I said, he does just about everything for this team. So, I mean, there's the one positive you look at it, and like you said, is the Lightning could be used to this by now. They could almost be accustomed to being without Stamkos for extended periods of time. Again, not something you want to deal with, but something they have in the past. What interests me here, I think, is the sort of the varying recovery times you've heard. You've heard 4 months. You've heard 6 months. It's going to be a while. I mean, you're talking about the deadline, at least until around the trade deadline, if not, a little bit before then. So I wonder how this impacts what they do. Obviously, a name that you hear bandied about right now, it has been Martin Hanzal from the Arizona Coyotes. He doesn't do what Stamkos does, but he is a big-bodied center who can do a lot of different things for you. I do wonder if they make calls on him and maybe see if they can get out of the contract while they're at it. Maybe a more expensive guy, a guy they don't want to re-sign, things of that nature. So, but yeah, no, this is a big loss. And you do wonder, like you said, about his overall durability. I lean more towards this is bad luck versus injury prone, or however you want to phrase it. But I do think this is more just sometimes you just have bad luck. And I think nothing that he's doing is necessarily a byproduct of poor conditioning, as much as it's just awkward collisions and things of that nature.
Well, that's why it's unusual, because he's a finely tuned athlete. He's known for being a workout fanatic.
I just looked up some old-fashioned stats, Mike, and what this sort of reminds me of is he might be just turning into Mario Lemieux. Like Mario Lemieux would, and look, they're different players, but Mario scored 690 goals, and he had 0.75 goals per game, right? And so you look at Stamkos, and he's a goal scorer too. Now, Mario would definitely get more assists. There's no comparison there. But he would also come down with these injuries, and also he had cancer, right? That's something that's, you can't do anything about. It just seems like there is a bit of bad luck with Stamkos. And I looked him up, and he's 0.55 goals a game with 321 goals. And I just think like he's this era's Mario Lemieux in that regard, where he's never going to be playing these full seasons, but he's still going to get to at least 500 goals unless something massive happens to him. He's still going to get maybe even more. He might even get 600 goals before he's done. But the idea is these are just the blips in the radar for him.
Yeah, I mean, the one benefit for him is that he is with a team that can withstand the injury. I mean, if he had signed with Detroit, if he had signed with Toronto, if he was with Buffalo, and we've seen what's going on with Buffalo right now, they lose Jack Eichel. They're near the bottom of the league. They're having trouble scoring goals. Those teams, all of those teams would have been wholly dependent on Stamkos to be there to provide scoring for them to be in a competitive position to try to make the playoffs. Tampa really doesn't need Stamkos to make the playoffs. They've got enough firepower there. It's a question of them winning the Stanley Cup. And that's where, where Ty is talking about that range of time. If it's 4 months, then they have a chance to get him back right around playoff time. And if he
remember, I still think, and Ty didn't hear this, but Ty, I likened it to like the when you go to the car dealership or your Meineke dealer, they put your car up. They say, oh yeah, it's going to be X or Y. They give you an estimate. Then later they give you a call and it's worse. And I had that happen with my knee, and doctors tell you, like, this is like our best guess, but when we have you in there, we have to see what's going on. They could find something worse too, and they could find out that it's a longer time frame. So I always think that this is like the early best guess, and then when he comes out of surgery, then they have a better idea as long as there's no setbacks. So 4 months to me is the ideal number. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and also you got to remember too, I think when he was out with his broken leg back in 2013, you did hit a point though where they thought he may be ready for the Olympics, and he was ahead of schedule. So it can go backwards and go forwards. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's not necessarily cemented in 4 months. So I think that's a positive. But speaking to this roster right now, one of the things that I would be interested to see if the Lightning would do, and I don't know if they will, but if you put Vladimir Namestnikov in the middle there, I really liked his game when he's played center for the Lightning. I don't know if they love it enough to give him a top line minutes per se. But there was a stretch last year where he was centering the top line with Stamkos on the wing, and they actually found some success there. So I feel like they have enough weapons to survive now, like we've said. But if you go into March and April, even if you're unsure about what Stamkos is going to be at, I mean that is a pretty big blow for a team that has really put their eggs in this year as as this is their time to make that run. So
yeah, as long as they're not replacing Stamkos with like a Marchessault type, even though right now early going he's ripping it up for Florida, or a JT Brown type, they'll be okay. I suggested maybe Adam Ern gets a look because he's a big kid with a great shot. That's one of their best prospects. He's in the AHL. That's
Corey Conacher's waiting for the phone call there.
Right. I mean, you don't put Corey Conacher in there, and nobody would be in the top line. I'm not suggesting that, but like if it's the same thing as the Islanders. We always said, how are they going to make up Kyle Okposo's 65 points? Well, now how are you going to make up Steven Stamkos' points? You do have to juggle the lines a little, and you do have to put somebody else in there to sort of temporarily get close to that. So this way, you can still function.
One thing I will say about this is that this couldn't happen to a better team in the sense that John Cooper is not afraid to give his young guys minutes. Just throw them right in and have them figure out on the fly. So that's good. This isn't happening to a team like St. Louis or Boston, where the coach is so heavily dependent on his veterans that it would be a massive issue. So obviously you never want to see it happen, but I think if there's a team that's built to handle it, it would be the Lightning.
And you mentioned Martin Hanzal. I saw his name being mentioned as possible trade bait to teams like Montreal who are looking – although I don't think Montreal's looking for forward help. I think they're looking for defensive help. But if Stamkos is put on LTIR, Hansel's salary, I believe, is $3.1 million. They wouldn't have a problem fitting him under the cap. So that's a possibility, but maybe something that happens closer to the deadline. Moving on here with another injury situation, Johnny Gaudreau injured and has suffered a broken pinky finger. He's out 4 to 6 weeks. Apparently, the Calgary Flames organization is not too happy because, according to Glenn Gulletson, their head coach, he had indicated, and the players had indicated before the injury, that Gaudreau had been slashed numerous times by the Minnesota Wild. Apparently, it was counted. It was over 20 times he'd been slashed in the hands or wrist area, and then finally Eric Stahl's slash broke his pinky finger. But no penalties were called. Russ, I mean, it's part of the game now. Unfortunately, if you're a scoring player, they're going to slash you. They're going to hack you. They're going to try to make it painful for you to score goals. But I think if the guy's slashed 20 times, he should be called. It should be called once.
I mean, it should be, but like, if I called up Wayne Gretzky on the phone and, I have him on speed dial just so everybody knows. If I called him up later and said, hey, Wayne, how many times do you think you were slashed in your career? He might give a number like, I don't know, 500,000. It's like Johnny Gaudreau is a star in the league. Guess what? Stars get hacked. That's the way it is. Ask Shaquille O'Neal in basketball when they created the Hack-a-Shack. I mean, this is something these guys have to deal with. I can't get on the refs for this because – if we started to really do this, right, and make a big concerted effort around the league, do you know how many penalties there would be? We would all be sick and moaning how many penalties there would be and how long the games are and how many power plays there are. So you know what? I just say this is a little sour grapes on Calgary's part. Yeah, you brought it up. I get it. Yeah, something happened. I get it. But, again, it's not like Eric Stahl was trying to break his finger. They're just trying to slow down a star player. Everybody does it.
Ty, is this a consequence of the sort of the death or phasing out of the enforcer or of toughness or fighting in this league? There's no price to be paid by these players. If back in the day somebody had slashed, Gilbert Perreault's hand in Buffalo, Jerry Korab would have kicked the guy's ass. I mean, it just would have happened.
Yeah, I what's funny though is I think the Flames still have some guys that could theoretically do that. I think they have some guys that could rough someone up if they really needed to. But no, I agree with Russ in the sense that I don't want the game to turn into a penalty fest. I really don't. It's one of the reasons why the NFL borders on unwatchable every week. It's just there's too many penalties. The game gets dragged out. Besides the product being mainly bad, but I think when you talk about the Flames, and this is just another bad break for a team that really, really has sort of struggled to capitalize on that second round appearance in 2000. It was 15, right? Yeah, it was 2015. They beat Vancouver, and I think that this is a group that since that series, they've taken steps back year after year, and this is not going to help them because right now they're giving up too many goals versus the goals they're scoring. And Johnny Gaudreau is one of the only guys that can score goals in this team. So I think this is a huge, huge loss for them. Overall, in the slashing point, it's going to happen. It's happened for years now. It's not going to change. If you're so upset about it, you as a team have to decide after the 10th slash, if there's 20 of them, that you're not going to deal with this anymore and you're going to make them pay for it. So, and then that, what that does? That puts everyone on watch. That puts the referees on watch, puts the players on watch. The referees are now looking for these slashes that you're talking about. So I think while we eliminate the enforcers, there's still room in the game for people to make people answer, and that's on the Flames for not making the Wild answer before the 21st slash against Gaudreau.
Well, yeah, I mean, when Yannick Hansen got hit by Morgan Riley and then Daniel Sedin got hit by Nazem Kadri, the guy who attacked Kadri, who retaliated, was Hansen after he'd been hit. So Yannick Hansen isn't exactly Donald Brashear. So any player can do that. But I think there's that right now. There is that missing. There is no deterrence. I mean, and that's the thing. I think deterrence at some point stops players from taking advantage of certain situations. I'm not saying let's goon it up again, but if they keep slashing, and somebody whacks the guy across the face.
You know, I just got a text from Tomas Sandstrom. He said he didn't get called for half of his slashes. Clearly, I didn't get that text. But if I were friends with Tomas Sandstrom and I asked him, he probably would say that.
Is that Dave Brown knocking at the door? Okay.
But I mean, you think about it. There were guys that made careers out of that.
Yeah.
True. Okay. Rather surprising news coming from the Flyers camp, Russ. Shane Gostisbehere, finalist for the Calder Trophy. You know, we've talked about him a couple times on the show. He's having an okay year, not a great year, not living up to the expectations. Dave Hackstall, healthy, scratches him.
Mm-hmm. I support it. I mean, I brought it up a few times this year, if you remember. I know I've talked to you about it offline where I've said, you know, he really needs to pick it up defensively because he has not improved at all from last year. And now that the offense isn't what it was last year because teams are game planning against him, he has to pick up that part of his game, and it hasn't happened. And so I think this is sort of a message to him. Hey, you got to get a look at this now from the press box and see maybe what you're not seeing with your defense partner and everything else. Sometimes a look from the press box could help. And this is just one of those things, like it's a message to him. Hey, you may be one of our best offensive defensemen, but you still have to play a 200-foot game. And right now I felt like he has been deficient in that this year, but I also felt like I told you that when I've mentioned it, I get killed. Oh, how could you say something bad about Shane Gostisbehere? But like I try and look at things analytically and say, hey, I'm just not seeing it. I'm sorry.
Ty, I look at Gostisbehere and the way he played last year and the impact that he had on the Flyers, and the guy I immediately in my mind compare him to is Erik Karlsson, because Erik Karlsson, his defense is his offense. Defensively, positionally, Erik Karlsson sometimes is a disaster. I've seen him get walked around. I've seen him get pushed around. But his ability to counterattack, his speed, his offensive creativity, his weapons, that's enough to keep people on their heels. And the same thing with Gostisbehere last year. Now, the thing is, with what Russ is saying is correct. If teams are game planning against him and trying to neutralize him, and he has to play more of a defensive game, then he's got to overcome that because he's not a fully formed defenseman, right?
To sort of weigh the pros and cons of what can you live with and what can you sort of hit before you say, all right, it's time to pull the plug and watch a game from above. I mean, some guys, you know, they scratch a player and it's not necessarily a punishment, more of a please, you know, use this to watch from above, watch how other teams are attacking your side, develop from there and move on. It's more of a hands-on video approach. And I talk to some coaches who say, if I bring up a scratch them, they want me to know it's not because that player is playing poorly. It's because they feel they need to take a look back and watch from above and see what the team is trying to do and how they can better, you know, equip the team to do those things. So I think with Gostisbehere, it's one of those things where there are going to be times where he's exposed as being too aggressive or not quite ready for a top pairing, top four kind of role. But at the same time, I mean, he's not immune to learning still. You know, he still has some things he needs to learn at the NHL level, obviously. So I think if you're going to do it, it's better to do it now in November versus March and April. We can really affect a player's confidence heading into the postseason, which is something you definitely don't want to do. So I support it now.
Yeah, I think another important thing is like, so, you know, Ivan Provorov has like 9 points, Gostisbehere is 10, Gostisbehere is a -4, Provorov's a -9. So this is the Flyers not just looking at plus minus, because Provorov has been blocking shots and doing some other things that Gostisbehere generally doesn't have in his game. And so when you have a kid like that still is doing those things, that's why you have Provorov not sitting and Gostisbehere sitting, because there's other things that he's contributing with. The Flyers probably feel like, hey, Gostisbehere is not contributing enough, and since the offense isn't quite there, we now have to sort of send this message.
And we welcome to the webcast Eklund, and Ek, I know that you wrote about
late than never. I apologize, guys. Sorry.
I know
when news breaks, I've got to be on top of it. So I was working on some things here.
I know that you wrote about Gostisbehere being awarded Athlete of the Year, and in response to that, Dave Hackstall scratches him healthily.
Yeah, I know that's the way to go. That's you know, talk about a crazy day Shane's had today. You know, he answers questions about this morning, you know, because there's quotes and articles, you know, on Comcast. Oh, it's quite an honor. You know, I love the city. It's been a great experience for me. the whole thing's been phenomenal. Oh, and Panaccio probably got off that interview with him and called him back 5 minutes later. So Shane, what do you think about being scratched tonight? I think that's probably good. Anyway, yeah, I know, didn't hear what else you said, Russ, but I agree with what you were saying at the end there. But I think this isn't really is a big deal. It's more of like just a chance to get him out of there for a second and maybe reset his batteries. I mean, this is a guy who played a lot of minutes at the World Cup of Hockey, and maybe, and I'm not saying this because Shane Gosser is a great guy, as you know, but maybe the Flyers are thinking this kid just has had a lot of positive energy thrown at him for a long time, and he needs a little bit of a reset. I'm not saying that Shane's like a that kind of a guy.
Second-year players, we always see a little dip, right? It's very rare when a second-year player doesn't have some sort of dip.
Well, Russ,
right, in the hockey world, they do like to keep people's egos in check sometimes, and even if he's not like outwardly that way, which he isn't, they might be like, you know what, the kid thinks, he's got to realize he's still got to work to be in the NHL. He still has to work hard. He still has to make. I think his play has fallen off a lot too, and especially in his own zone. That's where I've seen it more than anything else. He seems to be trying to go through players a lot. To me, like I've noticed that, like he'll make moves, try to put the puck through players' legs a lot in his own zone. Like in a play, you should never try. When you're the last line of defense, you shouldn't be trying that. Almost, invincible. Like, and I think that he's not invincible. I think Flyers are showing him that here. That is a weird game to pick though, because to do that with being that this is Patrick Laine, and you're going to need as much speed on the defensive end as you can get. So,
well, this is the move I advocated with Toronto and William Nylander, because Austin Matthews has not scored in 10 games. Nylander had not scored in 9. They were sort of hand in hand. They were playing on the same line. Matthews was still getting goal scoring opportunities. Nylander wasn't, and Nylander has a history of sort of disappearing for long stretches, going back to the Calder Cup playoffs last year. And I advocated, them sitting Nylander for a game and just giving him a wake-up call, and the response I got from Twitter was basically, are you insane?
It's a tough one to do, I mean, Ty, have they done this in Boston with any of the young kids? I was trying to remember.
Not recently. They did it with a few, like the kids that were brand new this year, like Danton Heinen was a healthy scratch because it wasn't anything with his play. They just wanted him to sort of see from above versus just being thrown into the fire. So it's different. It's just I know they've done it before with Pasternak. They've done it with Ryan Spooner. They did with Ryan Spooner this year, actually. So they've done it a few times, but it's not as common, I think. Then again, you're talking about a Bruins team that has sort of been starved for talent for a very long time now. Right. So they don't have the luxury that the Flyers do in that sense, especially going back on their blue line.
Well, here's another thing, too, and I think this falls into it. Dave Haxtell's game planning. He doesn't care that, the team has young players and is rebuilding. He's trying to win every game. He's got still pressure to make the playoffs. He looks at this Winnipeg Jets team. He probably saw the same tape we did for the last few weeks, where you have to have a pretty big and fast defense to hold back some of their big forwards and Scheifele and Ehlers. And so, taking Gostisbehere out may just be a good move for that too, because then you could replace him with a little more size.
Well, you're putting in McDonald, right? You're putting in Andrew McDonald, so it's not.
But he's stronger. Andy McDonald's stronger.
He's stronger. I agree with that. And
I think this is primarily a wake up call. I don't think.
No, but I agree. I think. Yeah, I don't think. It is interesting though, like healthy scratches in the age of millennials. This is what I was thinking of today.
They just flipped out on Twitter.
Oh yeah. No, I mean people. I mean, and the age of Twitter. I mean, in general, like this is people. That's why I would try to kind of I want to play it down as much as possible, because honestly, this is not something that's new to hockey. It's just something that we don't see very often, and we don't see, and even like a millennial himself that is Gostisbehere, depending on how you define a millennial, which I still am not quite sure, is.
That's how you're not one.
We tried. Kevin Allen and I sat in the press box for an hour on the internet, 2 relatively, learned journalists, and could not find a real good definition of millennials. So he couldn't put millennials in a USA Today article. It's really funny because I'm like, what we should call this Team North America? We should call them the Team North American Millennials. And he's like, yeah, that's a good idea. It's like, but in order to do that, for USA Today, you have to do fact checking on what a millennial is. So we spent an hour and a half at least trying to find what. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I'm just saying that
basically brought Kevin Allen down the rabbit hole with you.
Yeah, he's like, what the hell is like? There is not like a real definition of this. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. No, but I think that, but the younger players aren't like we wonder. You have to wonder how if Gostisbehere has ever been a healthy scratch in his life. You know, like this is not something normal for superstar players when they come through. He's always been.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in international play he has been. I'm sure.
Yeah, it probably has been, but I mean, not obviously not at Union or
right.
Some guys, it all depends the kind of player. I think I don't know if Gostisbehere really falls into that category. I mean,
he's a level-headed kid. It's not going to bother.
Yeah.
He's a level-headed kid.
It's not like he's the first overall pick, and he's been a highly touted prospect since he was 9 years old. It's he's had to work to get to where he is obviously today. So
right. No, I agree with that.
There are some guys though that like they don't handle it well. They don't handle that. They don't handle criticism. They don't handle the media well. I've never. I mean, that granted,
Ilya Bryzgalov fell under that.
Huh?
Ilya Bryzgalov fell under that.
Yeah, I think there are some guys, and I've only met Gostisbehere I think once or twice now, but
yeah.
I don't necessarily get that impression from him. But there are some guys that if once you put them under the a slightest bit of scrutiny, they crumble. And it's like, how did you get to this point? How did you get to this level if you are upset about what the blogger and what the fan is saying about you on Twitter? Who cares?
I know. If you blow up over a tweet, I mean, how are you going to be able to run a country? I mean, I just don't understand. No. Sorry.
There we go. Here's one in per show.
No, but you're right. But Ty's right. I mean, Chuck Monick was just an old jerky guy, but I've noticed like, there is a younger thing, I kind of first saw with like, say, Mike Richards, for example, where you have like a person who thinks that there are, all that sometimes. And Mike Richards kind of grew out of that and became a lot. But when he first in the league, he definitely had that, I think I'm all that type thing going on.
I always notice that the great pros and the really solid pros can really just block everything out.
Oh, yeah.
But every once in a while, there are some guys that can hear that one guy in the last row, that Mike Orgello booing him. And that sometimes they hear that guy. And the guy that can hear that guy does have a problem.
They always hear that guy.
I think, and I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but you look at some of the guys the Bruins have moved over these last few years.
Mm-hmm.
They did have some mental makeup issues, I think, in terms of handling criticism or handling media, handling the town, whatever it may be. So I think that's a real thing that can exist in certain cities. And Philadelphia is one of those cities. I don't think that's happening to Gostisbehere. I don't think it will because he's so loved there by the fans. But it's something that's interesting to watch with other talents and guys like Bryzgalov, like Russ mentioned. So it's difficult. You learn a lot about a person from situations like this. But if I'm a Flyers fan, I'm not worrying about Shane Gostisbehere.
No, and I'll say the other thing about this is this. If this was let's say Tortorella doing it or Babcock doing it or even, Hitchcock doing it, it'd be another thing. But Hackstall, the one thing he does seem to have a good grasp on is players that are younger, like Gostisbehere. I think that, that's one of Hackstall's pluses, right? Because he knows kids who've been in college. He knows he was a college coach for a long time. So this is his thing. So he probably sees something that he's seen before in one of his college players, because Gostisbehere is only like 1 or 2 years out of college, right? So he sees something else that he's seen before, and that in my bet would be that's what's going on.
And we're not making this up. Like Eck and I literally witnessed Bryzgalov not getting the start in the Winter Classic, walking out of that little meeting, he had a piece of gum and he just jammed it into the garbage can. We said, "Hey, Ilya, can we talk to you?" And he goes, "No." And then we find out, hey, he's not playing in the Winter Classic. He was that mad.
That was the end of Bryzgalov too, and that was the end. That really was. That was actually a crazy move when you think back. The Flyers were playing really well before that, but with him actually in goal.
When the Bruins had a bunch of goalie injuries, I was like, oh man, we're like one injury from Bryzgalov. I kind of want this to happen.
There's like the Bryzgalov zone that you're entering. Like you're right here. One more,
and you're right there. The Bryzgalov zone. I was like, man, I kind of want this to happen right now.
That's the worst. Oh my gosh.
We buried the lead. We got to talk about.
Okay, let's get into the NHL and the Olympics. Yes. All right.
As the world turns, if we had that music, it'd be perfect.
I'm going to soon be doing a morning blog a morning video by myself on Facebook. That's going to be just like a quick vlog that's going to be 4 minutes long. I started to do it one this morning before things started coming apart as far as some of the things I had to chase down. And I was doing it on this topic. So I actually wrote out a whole thing that I was working on, a quick short hit vlog. Sorry.
Yes, get it right.
So anyway, this is kind of like, telling your kid, we're going to Disney World for your birthday, but we're going to cancel the next 3 Christmases. You okay with that? Is that good? All right, let's do that. This is such a strange move in so many ways. Like, I've talked to people, and the players are not going to go for it. First off, it's not going to happen. There's no way the players are not going to say, yeah, sure, we'll extend the season. And the funny thing is, here's where I think this is flawed, because I was thinking of, like, one of the segments I'm going to have on the show is the net half full or half empty? Okay, so that's one of the things I've been doing. So this net, is this half full or half empty? It's half empty when you think about what I just said, that the NHL treated the players really subserviently in this situation. Now they are, granted, but they basically are giving them an ultimatum, so to speak, really saying, okay, extend the thing. Well, yeah, they'll let you go to the Olympics. Players saying, well, you might have to go to the Olympics anyway because NBC is really pushing you, and that's true. I've looked into that. So this is a three-pronged horse. So then, although if you want to look at it as half full, you could sit there and say the NHL's okay with the CBA this time. Like, because the last couple times they haven't been. Like, the NHL has always tried to get a higher percentage or a different percentage. And last time when this happened, I remember people saying, oh, it's 50-50 now. It's not going to be 50-50 eventually. It's going to be 60-40 NHL. So, but the NHL being okay with this, that would make me kind of happy because, okay, maybe we're not going to lockout. However, once you did this, now suddenly the players are thinking that if you're okay with this, maybe we shouldn't be. And here's where this whole thing backfires, because suddenly the players, you're hearing, oh, we don't like paying all this, all this escrow and everything like that's a problem. So now, you know what, if the NHL is okay with this CBA, maybe we shouldn't be, and maybe we should think before we extend this thing 3 years. And now suddenly we've got a problem, and that's where I think
it's a little different than that. Here's the way I think. First thing is, having followed Donald Fear a lot over the years, the minute he says we're going to take this back and look at it, it's a non-starter. It's done.
Of course, no, it's definitely done.
There's no chance. Now, is the NHL okay with the CBA? No, but I think the NHL is looking down the road and saying, well, we just have this Las Vegas team. Imagine if all of a sudden in 2020 we stopped playing. The Las Vegas team literally only got in 2 seasons before a lockout. And if we bring in another team in, let's say, 2018-19, and then there's a stoppage in 2019-20, well, then they only get in 1 year. And so they're looking down the road at what may be happening and what definitely is happening with Las Vegas and saying, yeah, we're going to try and avoid this because this would be really bad. And I'm sure Foley doesn't want to get a team and have it be locked out just 2 years later, right? And so that's why I think even though this CBA is probably not perfect on either side, they're willing to sort of do that. But they are just they're doubling down. The NHL is literally doubling down on this move.
Yeah, I think what's going on here is the NHL never wanted to go to the 2018 Olympics. There's probably a sizable chunk of ownership that doesn't want to go.
Well, that's true. There's always owners that don't want to go to the Olympics.
And Gary Bettman has basically gone to them and say, okay, if I can get a 3-year extension on the CBA, would that be enough of enticement to say, okay, go ahead? And I'm sure they said yes, because there's labor peace for 3 more years, there's cost certainty, and the only thing that you really have to do is go to one Olympics that you don't really want to go to. Think of it this way: 2025, you're not adding on any more Olympics. All they're guaranteeing is the 2018 Olympics, the 2020 World Cup, and some overtures to some of the European leagues and spreading. They laid it out. Bob McKenzie laid it out this morning in terms of what else would the NHL would be prepared to do, but I think one way or the other, we're going to have one or the other side walk away and say in September of 2019 that they want to renegotiate the CBA. So I think we're going to have that escape hatch in 2020, one way or the other. So I don't think this really does anything.
I don't know, and the reason I don't know is because you got to remember that as powerful and as fair as and as Bettman is. they are really just speaking for their sides, right? So, and the good thing about both of these guys, as opposed to somebody who was in there before, who shall be renamed nameless, or who was good enough, or at the time, right? There's my hint.
But
As opposed to him, who basically felt like he was above the people he was representing, neither of these guys are. Okay,
Right.
both of these guys actually are representing their players. So if the players
it's never got contentious between the two. That's the interesting
right,
part.
and that's what's good about this relationship. And it just came off their biggest cooperation of all time. Like the World Cup of Hockey is a completely cooperative thing that they did together.
But this relationship's not going to go on forever. Donald Fear, if let's say the CBA got advanced for 3 years, let's just say the players agreed to it, he'd be like 72 years old by the time he'd be negotiating the next one. Chances are he wouldn't even be the guy.
Bettman's even older than him.
No,
right?
He's younger.
He's very close though. He's
67. He's a few years younger.
But yeah, so is Bettman. I've
actually he would be 67 at that time. He's 64 now, I think. Yeah.
Right.
I've often thought that this is the last, and I actually one time, I mean, now I can't say anymore, but I thought this was the last thing that he was going to do with the CBA. As like I thought that this was the last time that Bettman was done negotiating CBAs based on what I had. Anyway, all right, so, but just like saying this much, I think that the problem here is you're dealing with hockey players, and the hockey players are very different, and they see this as being given an ultimatum, and that is what's pissing them off. And because I've talked to guys, and they don't like it. They really just don't like being talked to like that. They feel like it's very disrespectful. They really are suddenly it gives Donald Fair, who wants to negotiate better, because that's what he is, he's a negotiator, right? He wants to get him a better deal. It gave him more ammunition to go back to them and say, remember when they did this? Remember when they said you could go to the Olympics?
Yeah, but
it's a bad idea. I've done 2 of these lockouts. I'm just telling you, this is a bad idea.
You can't blame the owners for trying this, because apparently the players succumbed before.
No, you can blame them for trying this, because there's a time and a place to do this kind of crap. This is not the time.
Business, Eck. I mean, this is
but they should know better. And I think that Bettman does want them to go to the Olympics. And I do believe that Bettman wants to go to the Olympics. I do really believe that. I do think he's got to convince the owners, though. So I think that when Mike, what you said, there's some owners who don't want to go. Yes, I agree with that. But I think deep down, Bettman loves bigger stages. He's all about bigger stages. He doesn't see the Olympics as a bad thing at all. I really do believe that. So I think that this is maybe this is Bettman's way to give the owners something to say, okay, I got this for you, so let's go to the Olympics. But I think Bettman is on the side of going to the Olympics. I really do believe that.
But I want to see what Ty thinks on this. But one of the things that I think has to be thought about here is, the players might want to have this CBA extended 3 years, because you know what the owners are going to be going after when the new CBA comes up. It's not going to be 8 years and 7 years. It's going to be 5 years and 6 years. It's going to be, as you said, 60-40 monetary split. This deal is not bad for the players. Maybe 3 more years of labor peace might be something that they would grab onto. They probably won't, because they've been put into a bad negotiating position, but it's not all bad.
Now there's a really bigger elephant in the room than the 5 years or 6 years thing. I don't think they're going to go shorter than that, because actually shorter contracts drive up prices eventually. So they realize that every time you have to negotiate, deals go higher.
Teams did want to lock up guys. That was part of the problem with them overspending the last time. They would give them these ridiculous 8-year deals, but the price was just skyrocketed. Back in the Bobby Holik era, when the Rangers were paying him.
Right. I mean, the thing that they want is guaranteed contracts. Is not guaranteed contracts. That's the big issue on the table, and that's the scary issue on the table, right? Because
there's only one league that doesn't have guaranteed contracts, and that's the NFL. And nobody's stupid enough to go down
into that. Look,
but I'm not. And when I say that, what I've heard is, okay, a contract can be guaranteed for 3 or 4 years, but the rest of the contract may not, like that sort of thing. That's what I've heard, and that's where they're thinking. So I mean, I'm not talking about going to the NFL where they can just cut anybody anytime because none of the contracts. I'm talking about the first 3 years of a contract being guaranteed, but then the rest of it not being.
I mean, look, the NBA and the NHL are the 2 leagues that closest have a partnership with their players. And so I don't think the players really hate anything about what's going on. They just, feel like there's a few things to fight here and there. That's all.
No, I don't think they hate this. They do hate this escrow.
Ty, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, they do.
If this is going to be if this is going to pave the way for another lockout, it's going to kill the sport, and that's really how I feel, because I know we always say this every time there's a lockout, but if you're someone like me who's 24 years old, maybe 25 next month, I vividly remember 2 lockouts. There was a third lockout when I was like 4 years old that I don't really remember that well, but I'm just saying that would be 4 lockouts before I even hit the age of 30, which is like, no, you can't do that. You're not sustainable if that's what you do. So I think there has to be pressure, and I think if the NHL wants the owners, if they want more, they're gonna have to give up something, and that's the thing. They've always sort of been hell bent on their way or the highway. They rarely give anything. So now, if you're gonna give up something, you got to do it. It's just the way that it is. I'm sorry, Jimmy Jacobs. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're dead on.
You know what though? I think what's going to happen, Ty, is I don't think there'll be a lockout, but I don't think they're going to go for this deal either. I think that walkaway position in their CBA, they're both going to walk away, and that 1 year that they have in, what is it, 2018-19?
No, 19-20.
2019-20, they're going to be negotiating that year, and they won't have a lockout, but they're going to be negotiating heavily for the CBA at that time. I think that's what will actually happen.
Yeah,
and ironically, the last thing that could occur before a lockout would be the 2020 World Cup, like it happened.
Oh Lord.
In 2000.
No, but I don't. I mean, the L word. We don't want to talk about the L word, right?
No,
but I mean,
we didn't want to talk about it, but they brought it up.
No. It's very real though, and I've always, I mean, hell, I've always said this, and I don't say this casually. Like, HockeyBuzz wouldn't exist without the lockout.
I mean, think about this for a minute.
But go ahead.
So Las Vegas is going to be announcing their name and everything in Las Vegas. There'll be big NHL media there. This subject will be broached there. I'm not sure that's the greatest place to have this thing brought up, but it's going to be brought up in a press conference.
That's a really good point.
Well, I'll give you one. I'll give you one more thing on that, Russ. Think of it this way: before the new CBA, the NHL is probably going to want to get that second expansion team, because I'm very sure that Donald Fear is going to ask for expansion fees to be part of hockey-related revenue. They want a piece of that $500 million, and they don't want the owners to get all of it. That will be a bargaining chip. That's why that second expansion team will happen before this CBA is
That's a good point. I mean, but I think that bargaining chip, that's the kind of bargaining chip that keeps them from getting getting rid of non-guaranteed contracts. Like, that's the kind of chip that keeps something like that from happening, not so much gets them something else.
Right.
Like
I think that's fair.
And that's because a lot of times, that's like a typical like Apple, Samsung patent war type thing, where we have these patents, you're violating, we have these patents, you're violating. Okay, we're both going to violate these patents. It's okay, but as long as we're both violating patents, we're good. That's the kind of thing you're going to see. And what you're saying, Ty, is very right. I don't think the NHL can survive another lockout like they did before, and I think that's because people there's just so many more entertainment options now than there were even in the last lockout, and there's so many more, and that's why we're seeing ratings fall in the NFL. We're seeing ratings for the first time not go up in the NHL, because there's so many things you can do. There's so many other things you can watch and see. And that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger as cable TV no longer dictates what people watch. And there's a whole bunch of things that, people are doing with their time. So you really get.
You're also talking about the rise of. I mean, soccer's always been a popular sport to play in the U.S., but now the fandom is widening quite rapidly, because you have both the U.S. leagues, and then you have the Premier League is always popular. The Champions League and things like that. And now what the NHL may get usurped by here would be esports, which is a huge market that's actually getting TV airtime now, which is incredible to think about.
Which is bizarre. Is bizarre good. You guys know what esports is?
I have an idea, but you can say it.
So yeah, it's
watching two people play EA Sports.
Right.
Yeah. Zippity doodah. It's like watching me and you play Stratomatic back in 1985.
No, watching people play Stratomatic is far more boring than watching people play video games. Sorry, I have to say. That's like we're not talking about like watching two people play bridge. We're talking about, I mean, like, when my kids were young, I mean, I would talk about this, they used to watch me play like Super Mario Brothers all the time, and they were transfixed by it. There's like, oh, that's the coolest thing in the world, right? And now Twitch is enormous. I mean, some of the most viewed things, viewed more than our show, guys, unfortunately, I have to say, were some of the things I put up on the air when I put like those like simulated games for Canada versus Russia or whatever those things. I mean, people love watching video games. And Twitch is an enormous network, and there's a lot of money in it. So you're right, Ty. I mean, there's so many other options, and I think the NHL needs to be aware of that. And unfortunately, when you have, the older people get, the less they're aware of that. I mean, fortunately, Bettman is pretty good about that kind of stuff.
This is the one message I always have for the players, though, and I really stick by this. I remember during the last lockout, I interviewed Ryan Smith. He had that whole traveling circuit. He was going to have 8 games or 9 games, whatever it was. It was a grandiose plan. It turned out to be 2 games, and then he disbanded it. And that's because players can't run teams. I just did a book on the dead ball era for baseball, and there was a thing called a Players League. Yeah. You know how long that Players League lasted?
Oh, yeah.
1 year.
It's been terrible. I know we got to go soon, but I wanted to, and I mean,
owners are owners for a reason.
No, you're right, and they don't really want to be partners. And I talked to an owner after the last lockout, because I was going back and forth between an agent and an owner, and going back and talking to different people. And this one owner I was talking, this agent said, I really want us to be partners. We want to be partners. If you're selling the tickets, you're going to lower the price of tickets. You got to tell us now, because we're partners. We get percentage of your revenue. So this agent was arguing that the players need to be in on that, right? And the owner laughed, of course, at that. And you would think that's obnoxious at first, but then the owner said, okay, well then they also have to help us pay for the guys who sell the hot dogs and guys who sell the parking, and they got to help us get the arena. They don't want to be involved in all that. They don't want to have anything to do with that. So the hockey players want to come and play hockey, and he's dead on right. I mean, that's, and then, okay, so you know what, since we're partners and want to make more money, we're not going to stay at the Marriott's anymore. That we're going to just go and stay, at the Motel 6s of the world, because you guys will make more money that way, right?
Think about the bad press. Players don't even realize, and I'm just going to use a fictitious situation, but let's say it's Madison Square Garden, and they went up to JT Miller, who's now one of their partners, and JT Miller decides, we shouldn't have those pretzel and beer combo anymore, because we're not making enough money. So then the Rangers put out a press release, say, hey, no more pretzels and beer because of JT Miller. He thinks it's a bad idea. We're trying to save money. How would that play out?
It just doesn't fly. There's so much that goes into an NHL team. And when they argue about revenue, hockey-related revenue, there actually are legitimate things there why they have to do that, because they do pay people besides the players.
Oh yeah.
And they do pay for things besides the players. I mean, the players might be their biggest expense for sure, but there are other things that they have to deal with. And people lose their jobs because of players getting extra.
The Phantoms used to have to pay a guy that used to play SpongeBob, and I wanted to kill him. I'm friends with him now, but I wanted to kill him every time he played that SpongeBob song. Every time. There
you go. And SpongeBob is ridiculous, I mean, come on. That's just that's the one I never understood. But anyway, all right. So I mean, I forgot everything else, but not SpongeBob. All right, so let's move on. I tried the other day. It was on the other day. I'm like, you know what? I'm older now. I can figure this out. I'm going to watch SpongeBob. So I watched it for 10 minutes. I get it. Everything's underwater, right? Everything's a fish pond.
Pineapples don't grow under the sea. They just don't. It's not ever going to happen.
Give me Pinky and the Brain. Give me Ren and Stimpy.
Sponge.
No. All right, never mind. All right. There's going to be a lot more. This is not going to go away. We're going to be discussing this topic more. This is
Oh, good. Good.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good. Just the tip of the iceberg.
Well, we did research it, though, because it is important.
Oh, we have to. And there's a lot of stuff. And believe me, it's very important. And I do believe that we will get away without a lockout this time. But I don't like this first move. This first move is not a good first move.
Yeah.
They needed to be a little bit more respectful, in my mind. At least that's the perception, and what people feel is what's real. You can sit there and say, "Oh, the player shouldn't look at it that way. This is just a business." Well, no, they do. They see it. This is how they feel. So, if they feel this way, you can't tell them not to feel this way.
Right.
Anyway, thank you guys. Thanks for doing the show without me for the most of it. I appreciate that very much, and thanks, Ty, as always, for jumping in. Remember that the Buzz guys is just hockey. We'll talk to you tomorrow.